Good Friday morning to you. Welcome to Matthew study number 58. I just had so much fun being outside yesterday. I thought, well, we got to give this a try one more time. I don't know how often we'll be able to do this, and I certainly don't want to lose the feeling of intimacy that we have when we're together. But I tell you, when it's February and it's Ohio and you have the chance to go outside, you take it. And so that's what I'm doing. We are continuing our study of Matthew chapter 4. We're at these last few verses, 23 through 25. And we're considering getting ready to go into the Sermon on the Mount and then the works that follow after that. And as I've said to you before, I think these three verses, 23 through 25 of chapter 4, really set up the Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5 through 7, and then the works that Jesus does in chapters 8 and 9 that follow it. There's this pattern, and Matthew is kind of setting it up. This is like the introduction to what's to come. So one more time, let's just read it together, shall we? This is Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. And he went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria. And they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, epileptics, and paralytics, and he healed them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis, and from Jerusalem and Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. Now, yesterday we talked about the various kinds of diseases that Jesus healed, and Matthew gives us a great description of all of the different kinds of diseases. The idea wasn't so much to describe exactly what Jesus did. It was more a matter of trying to say that there was just nothing that Jesus couldn't do. And the result, of course, as we'll talk more about tomorrow and Saturday, are the great crowds that followed him. But I'd like just to kind of follow up this discussion of all the different diseases that Jesus healed. And I'd like to talk a little bit about why he did it and whether or not this is a scripture that really applies to us today. Because certainly one of the things that we always want to look at when we're talking about a Bible study is, well, what can I take? What can I hold on to for myself? The first thing we need to understand is that Jesus healed everyone who came to him during his earthly ministry, and that he did this without exception and without limit. Now, I think it's important that nowhere here do we see that he promises to heal everyone who asks him now. I believe very much in Jesus' continuing healing ministry, but just the fact that he did it without exception when he was here 2,000 years ago doesn't follow that that means he's going to do that now. And I just want to be, kind of clear about that. We don't want to apply something wrongly. Now, if that's true, if he did heal everyone who came to him then, why did he do it? What was the reason? Because if we say, well, because he loved everyone and because he was so, because he could do it, he did it, well, then the natural question would be, well, then why doesn't he do that now? Well, the reason I believe that Jesus did such great healing was to authenticate his ministry, to authenticate the fact that he was indeed the Messiah, that he was the one who was to come, that he was the Son of God. You might remember later on when John the Baptist is losing his faith a little bit, kind of shaken up in the jail, he sends some of his disciples to Jesus and says, hey, really, are you the one that was to come? And what is it that Jesus says? He says, go back to John the Baptist and tell him what you see, that the people are being healed, and that that the deaf can hear and that the blind can see. In other words, these miracles of healing that Jesus is doing is authenticating his ministry, authenticating the fact that he really is a Son of God. Now, I don't know if you have really given this a great deal of thought or not when we talk about this healing that Jesus did, but I think it's important that we consider the scope of what he did. That's kind of what Matthew is trying to give us here in these verses at the end of chapter 4, the broad scope of everything that Jesus did from a healing standpoint. First of all, Jesus healed directly. And again, by the way, this isn't all in these verses, but what I challenge you to do is to look at this as we go on throughout the different verses that we're going to read and the rest of the Matthew Gospel that we're going to study. Note these things. And by the way, there are 6 things I'm going to give you. You may want to go back and write these down. I think this would be worthwhile remembering as we go through. First of all, Jesus healed directly, without a word or a touch, without prayer, and sometimes without even being near the afflicted person. Now that's pretty powerful. Again, not to take anything away from the benefit of prayer and the fact that we should pray, but nowhere in these Gospels do we see that Jesus prayed first before he would heal someone. He had the authority to do it. He didn't have to touch them. He didn't have to give a particular word. He could do it even without being near the afflicted person, as we see in several examples, especially with the centurion. Secondly, Jesus healed instantaneously. There was no waiting. There was no idea, well, you're healed, but you just have to wait to see it. No waiting for restoration, nothing coming in stages. Every time that Jesus healed, he healed completely and immediately. Third, Jesus healed completely, never partially. There was never this idea that, well, a little bit is better than none at all. No, when Jesus healed, he healed completely. Fourth, he healed everyone for whom healing was asked by another, without discrimination as to a person or to affliction. If somebody asked him to heal somebody else, Jesus did it. And it didn't matter who the person was who was being healed, what their problem was. When someone else asked, Jesus always did it. Fifth, Jesus healed organic and congenital problems, no matter how severe or how long-standing. I mean, somebody could literally have been born with a disease. I mean, they were just born this way. It wasn't like something got broken or got, some kind of disease along the way. If they had it even from childbirth, Jesus would heal them. And then lastly, we see that Jesus could even bring dead people back to life. He healed even after the disease itself had completely run its full course and taken the life of its victim. Now, the reason I'm going through this is the same reason that Matthew is going through it here at the end of chapter 4. He's saying, before I give you all these examples, I want you to note the completeness of what's happening. You see, when Jesus came, he proclaimed and taught, preached and teached that the kingdom of God is near. And the way that he would prove that would be through the miracle of healing, through the miracle of restoration. You see, when the kingdom of heaven comes, it is going to redeem and restore things back to the way they always should have been. Well, naturally, when this happened, it got a lot of people's attention. And we'll talk more about that when we come back on Saturday morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow.